Hello and welcome to the Slingshot channel. The reason why I'm standing so far away from you is because I want you to appreciate the dimension of this new weapon that I've been sent from another YouTube channel. Shad from the great channel Shadyversity sent it to me. I think it was brand new when I got it, and it's a monster. This is a 110-pound bow. I think now it might even be a little bit more powerful because I had to increase the brace height, since this was only 4 inches and I need about 7.5 inches for the typical distance. So with my stretched thumb I can actually put my fist through this here. And otherwise you would get nasty hand slaps, and that's why I'm wearing double protection on top of my safety t-shirt. It is a super heavy bow. And I have to say that even though I have these gloves on, it is very hard for me to pull it. And that is not the full draw, of course. I think it's not possible for me to draw it in full. And that is not because I'm weak. I'm not weak, I don't think so. I mean, in weightlifting, I can still, at my age of almost 55, I can really move some iron. But these bows need a different kind of muscle set that you can only get by shooting longbows, heavy longbows. I recommend that you watch a very interesting video from Ted's workshop, an interview with Joe Gibbs, who can actually master like bows that are twice as heavy as this, even though the guy is probably half my weight. And he said there is no workout except shooting longbows if you want to learn it. And he said it takes you about 5 years to master a bow like this. I can probably do it a little bit quicker because I have the body mass for it. But right now, this bow exceeds my skill set. Okay, let me try to shoot it anyway. It's probably not going to end well. Okay. All right. That wasn't even that bad. Let's try again. Okay, one more time. Broke off the knock of this cheap arrow. Well, these are of course not made for longbows. It's got to be possible to hit the target. Ah! But as you see, I wasn't nearly able to bring this to full draw, and I could almost not control it because the bow is just too heavy for me. I can probably still do like 70 or 75 pounds, even though that is a stretch. But a heavy bow like this, I would need to sit down and work a lot with it. Same as with shooting slingshots. Believe me, I've done some slingshot shooting with guys that have never done this before. People that are way stronger than I am, that can really beat me in the gym, in any muscle group they pick. But still, they weren't able to draw a real heavy slingshot. They could probably pick it up quite soon because they have actually the talent for it. But if you don't really know how to move and how to coordinate your muscle set, and if you don't develop these critical small muscles that you need for the special motion, I don't think it's possible to master it. But of course, you know, there is an invention of mine. It's called the sliding instant Legolas. That could help me doing this, because I found a way of using rubber to make it possible to draw a bow that otherwise is not controllable. So, let me show you what I came up with. And here it is. I present to you the Assistant Draw full-length instant Legolas Warbow. Let me show you its features. So first of all, as you see, it's just a regular but somewhat bigger instant Legolas device, because it is chambered now for the bolts with an aluminum shaft weighing 27 grams. They're a lot heavier than the shorter bolts that I've been using, but they also only have 2 vanes, so they're stackable. And I also have used rollers again, so I have some pre-tension in the rubbers. And as you see, there's 2 rubber bands, one from below and one from above, which is also great for centering and spreading the force evenly. Of course, you still have the one-piece trigger sear trigger here, and you also have the long lever here. And as you see, this one is adjustable, so you can actually shorten the draw length by installing it, for example, here. If I wanted to do this, if I'm not able to completely draw it out, I could reduce the draw length a little bit, and then of course it would be easier to pull. But this is full power, And now I'm hoping that with the assistance of these rubber bands, I can overcome this. And I've clocked it. The bow at this draw length has about 95 pounds of a draw, which is usually too much for me, but I will try later without the rubber. And with the rubber, the tension at the end of the draw, this position here, so you can see it's already significant, is still, it takes about 25 pounds off my force. And of course in the beginning, since then the rubber is fully stretched, it will be even more. So as you will very soon see, in the first few centimeters it actually draws the bow out itself. I also use TheraBand Silver, but that's too much. I can no longer comfortably push it out. The TheraBand Black is about the toughest that I can still push. Okay, so we start by investing our force by cocking the weapon. So we push it in until it engages, and as you see now, the bow really wants to draw out itself. As you can see, the first few centimeters are effortless now, and that's way different to the bow without the rubber force. And now the bow is still very hard to draw for me because I'm not experienced in this. I'm a fairly strong guy, but I haven't developed these special muscle parts that you need to draw out a heavy warbow. So for me, this bow would probably not be controllable without the device. Now let's see if we can do it. And the lever in the front is going to be a big help because of my hand strength. See, the hand is really strong, since you actually draw out the bow in the original condition with your fingers as well. So the hand is very powerful. Okay, let's try it. I draw it out. Okay, and then the last few centimeters I can grab with my hand. And see, now I can release this. I can hold it in the front. And this gives me a huge advantage over traditional archers that need to release as quickly as possible, while I can take all the time in the world to aim and shoot. That has a lot of power. Okay, so first I invest the energy by pushing down on the thing until it grabs the string. And now you can see that it wants to draw the bow out itself just by the force of the rubber bands. So see, this stretch, it's already, the rubber has done the work for me. And now it's of course also much easier to draw it out. Of course this force will be reduced towards the end, but because there's a lot of pre-tension in the rubber, they're still going to help me mightily. Okay, so there's my target. Now I draw out and it's hard. Okay. Yeah. But now I'm holding on to it. And see, I can now release it here because I'm holding all the tension with my hand. And now I can of course spread the force between my two arms. Take very careful aim and shoot. There's a lot of force in the bow, but of course I can now manage it, even though this is too heavy of a bow for me to cock without any cocking aid. And let's do that again. It is exhausting still. Whoa! All right, one more time. Yeah. Okay, and one more arrow in it. Kick, grab it. Yeah. All right, as you see, it's a different issue. Hammering in these bolts very hard. As you see, solid aluminum and 2 veins only, so they are stackable. So is this a game changer? Would that have changed archery in medieval times? Well, first of all, there was no rubber. But of course you can do the same with a bow that runs in the counter direction. So you have a bow in the front and one to the rear. And the front bow could take the job of the rubber, of course. It will make the weapon a lot longer though, very clumsy. But it will work. And also, I have to say that, of course, as you see, for me, I'm not so much faster with this because it takes so much strength for me to cock the bow. But then again, you should not forget that a medieval archer would have found it easy to draw this bow. Probably a trained longbowman from medieval times would draw this bow out as easily as I'm drawing out a 55-pound bow. And therefore, I think it would still give you the advantage of much faster shooting. So, yeah, I do think it would have purpose. It would have its use here. And also I think it's a great advantage that you can take time to aim, because that's what you, when you watch videos from longbow shooters with heavy warbows, they don't have time to aim, because in full draw it's so hard that they have to release it immediately. And this is bad for aiming. As you see, even myself, I'm pretty much a novice in archery, can hit the target from a reasonable distance. So now I will be shooting again from a longer distance to the camera, so that you can see the motion in a little bit more detail. Okay, drawing itself out. Oh yeah! Fully cocked, aiming, and fire. One more time. Okay. Yeah. And fire. So now I've removed the rubber bands. As you see, these are the rubber bands, and actually I stretched them out from these 32 centimeters to 157 centimeters in full draw. And even in relaxed condition, they're somewhat 100 centimeters pre-stretched. So this is the amount of pre-stretch that you already have. And this is about twice as much, because I'm using them doubled up, twice as much as I would normally use for a powerful slingshot. So this is the bow without the rubber bands, and as you see, they're secured simply with a little bit of paracord and the knot and tube method. So it's very, very quick to assemble and disassemble. And now, of course, this glides very, very freely. So as you see, there's almost no tension when I push this forth and back. And of course, now pushing the sled to the front is super easy, but that won't be the case when I try to cock the bow out. And I haven't tried this before, so let's see if I can do it. Believe it or not, it's not possible. I can always do it, almost do it, but the last few centimeters, I can't do it. Yeah. Oh. Come on, there must be a way. No, I can't do it. I can't draw it out. And this is because the rubber bands actually reduce the power of this bow, the draw force, from about 95 pounds that I measured when I fully draw this out until this point here, to about 70 pounds. So these are the critical 25 pounds that I cannot draw without the assistance of the rubber bands. So yes, the rubber bands are helping me to master a bow that otherwise there would be no way that I could master it. And even if I would be able to draw it out without this here, I would not be able to hit anything with it, because I would simply be unable to control it at full draw. So therefore, I think the assistance for a bow like this, for a person like myself, is a great help. Here you can actually see the device itself. As you see, friction really isn't an issue at all. There's almost no friction. And here are the rollers, and they have a common axis, and as you see, they also have very little play and still run fine. Now, if you want to put on the rubber, as you see, it is really pre-stretched. All right, now the lower one, put it over the roller. So now the rollers are here. And as you see now, that the rollers nicely spin when you draw out, to even out the stretch factor between the shorter and the longer part of the band. And as you see how much pre-stretch there is. So this is what's actually there in fully cocked condition. This is exactly the amount of pre-stretch that you would get from it. Very significant. And as you also see, you can pretty much attach this to any longbow, because you know what I did is I did reinforce it a little bit with steel, so that I can make this thin, so that you can still handle this in a way that you don't need monster fists to hold it. But yeah, it's actually, as you can see here, there is the lever that presses down on the arrows, and you can also see that it catches the string, so this cannot be shot with an empty magazine. It wouldn't work. It would catch the string, you couldn't draw out the bow. So there's anti-dry fire. Yeah, this is gonna be shipped to Shadyversity now, together with the bow and a few arrows. A few more remarks. First of all, has this damaged the bow in any way? No, it has not, because see, I tied it on with rope, the entire guile rail set here is completely tied on with rope. So there is no change on the bow itself, except that at some point I removed the leather wrapping, which I can reattach at any time, of course. It's just that I wanted to get as close as possible with my handle against the riser of the bow. Also, I have to say that, again, I cannot overemphasize the value of this here, because what this practically does is it gives you a let-off, like in a compound bow, but for a longbow or a recurve bow. It means that you can hold onto it and then overcome the last few centimeters with the aid of your fingers, and then take time and aim, because it's much easier to hold it in cocked condition than during the draw. So I think this invention alone is itself worth a lot, not even counting for the magazine feature. In any case, how do you take it off? Well, you definitely have to remove the string, and then you can get the string through the little thing here that makes it possible to actually put the string underneath the short bolts, so that it would slide underneath and not be damaged by the tip of the arrows. And through this hole you can also easily then remove the string if you want to unstring the bow. And if you want to take the entire device off, of course you can remove it completely just by removing the rope here. And you can also take this off, but what you have to do is you have to remove the front handle with 2 screws here, and then you have to remove the axis and the 2 rollers and the parts that are underneath the rollers, and then you can take it out and disassemble it, which I would have to do if I send it to Shad from Shadiversity. He has to reassemble it, and I hope that he will manage. Alright, so there's a few other issues, like Shad originally suggested in his video to turn this around so that you can load the bolts from the other side. I could do that, but I'm not doing it for one purpose. Because see, I'm a right-hander. This means that I want to draw out the bow like this. Now, if I would bring the loading part over here, I would have to actually turn the entire setup around, which I could do, of course, but then aiming is so much harder, because then I would have to bring my face over to here to, just aim along the slot for the string here. Now if I do it from here, it's so much easier, and it also allows me to move my forearm out of the way so that the string isn't giving me awful slaps on the wrist. So there is a reason why I'm putting this on here. Although, of course, for a left-handed person, it would make sense to do that. Mount it on the other side and then turn it around. Then there is the question of friction. Does this add friction? It does add some friction. There is some friction on the draw, so a little bit of it, just because, of course, you have to overcome the friction of the setup in here as well. And that, of course, can be reduced by grease, medieval times, or roller bearings, modern times. But it's not very significant. It's actually very little friction in here, so therefore it doesn't make a big difference. There is a little bit of friction because of the string gliding here into the rails, but also that is not a problem, because this rope attachment method has the advantage that the bow stave can actually align itself a little bit sideways. So like you find it in a crossbow where you have an angle. So the same happens here. Since the string isn't completely pressing against it, it allows the stave to move a little bit so it can realign, and therefore the friction of the string here is very little. Although I have to say, I did do a middle serving here, just like you would do on a crossbow, just also because of the trigger. If I would use this on this bowstring without any serving, it would probably harm it over time. Therefore I like to use serving, which was not unknown in medieval times. So it was just a crossbow thing and not a bow thing. And now this is like a mixture between a bow and a crossbow. Aiming device. Can this also now get an aiming device? Sure, you can mount a red dot, you can mount a laser, whatever you want. But I don't think that for a warbow like this it makes sense. You can really aim easily just by sighting it down the string slot here. So that is not hard to do, but of course it will be absolutely possible and easy to attach any kind of sight, pin sights, iron sights made from wood maybe. So the next obvious question, would a medieval craftsman be able to build it? Sure. Anyone who could build a bow like this, a bow that has sometimes 150, 160 pounds of draw force, what they found on the Mary Rose ship, is able to do this, because you could just make this from normal I use plywood, but any kind of wood would do, since this does not really have to hold a lot of force. So therefore, absolutely, this could have been done in medieval times. Except, of course, the rubber bands. There was no rubber, because that is a New World plant. and therefore, this would not have been possible. But I think it would have not been an issue, because we're talking about trained archers, trained longbowmen, and they would have been able to master a bow like this without any problems and without rubber. This is just because I'm such a pathetic weakling and can't draw it out without the force of the rubber. So I will now be sending the whole thing to Shad and see what he makes of this. I hope that he's going to like it. It's going to be interesting to see, to hear his opinion about it. And well, looking forward to his video too. So I hope you like this, because that's it for today. Thanks and bye bye.